So if you're coaching me on how to do that, because I truly want to become a master at this, what should I be doing? Is it literally looking at their body and thinking, what are they feeling in this moment, et cetera? But what's the checklist that I should be going through?
So we can get into great complexity if we choose to, but I'll keep it very simple for you, because I would imagine that based on your experience and where you are in your life, you already do the big things already. You have to listen more than you talk. That's a challenge for a lot of people. You have to listen more than you talk. You have to ask open-ended questions, because when you ask an open-ended question, you are inviting the person to talk more than just a short, simple answer. What's happening is you're giving the other person the impression that they're interesting.
Okay.
And people love to be interesting. And the more interesting they feel, the more they're willing to share.
Yes.
So all that time that you're receiving the information, you are actively getting a picture of what that person is. You're building what we call an assessment. You can layer into that assessment verbal cues, how fast they talk, how loud they talk, what their vocabulary is. You can layer in physical body movements, body language.
Yes.
Are they leaning forward? Are they looking uncomfortable? Are they looking cold? And then you can start to imagine, oh, here's this person. It's the end of the day, and it's a Friday, and I know they have 2 kids. They must be wondering about their kids, and I know they have a long drive to get home. You start really picturing and thinking these things. And then you can validate your ideas by asking an open-ended question about the thing that you're assessing.
I see.
Right?
And then do you just allow that rabbit trail to go? Like you just continually, and is that what you would do with targets? Is you would just sit down and just continue to profile them and profile?
The superpower at CIA is not about guns or tech or gadgets. It's about systematizing natural curiosity.
Okay.
Just naturally finding something curious about the whole world around you. Even when you're sitting across from an extremist Islamic kidnapper, you can still be curious about them. You can still be genuinely curious about why they do, what they ate for breakfast, what are they going to have for dinner, what's their favorite type of coffee. I see that you're wearing this brand of sandal and not that brand of sandal. You can ask an infinite amount of questions, because it doesn't matter what they theologically or ideologically believe. At their base, between their 2 ears, they're the same pink computer that runs you.
Yes.
And it's all about being so naturally, so intentionally curious that you gain what we call informational superiority in the relationship.
Okay. Do you think that this is an issue we have just in society in general? Is this... There's a little willingness to want to listen to the other side, politically in particular. You see it on social all the time. With podcasts, people will say, why are you platforming this person, et cetera? Do you think that the antidote is truly, we should be curious about everyone?
I would actually change your statement just slightly. I would say that the problem isn't that we don't listen.
Okay.
The problem is that we're not curious.
Okay.
Right? And if we could be curious, I think what we would find is that we have a whole hell of a lot more in common with each other than we have at odds with each other. If we just wondered, why does that person wear a red hat? Why does that person wear a rainbow shirt? If we really were curious about why, we might find that at the end of the day, they are both trying to protect their loved ones. Well, shit, you can't argue with that. Everything else is just methodology.
Right.
And that's what's missing. What's missing is we've stopped being curious. We now assume that we know instead of assuming that we don't know. And CIA trains all of us, but just assume that what you think you know is wrong, and then let the evidence lead you.
Yes. Yes. All right. So this gets to a very delicate subject. Pass on this, but I'm very curious about this. If you want to go there, is Jeffrey Epstein, right? So what I find interesting about this entire case is I read more and more about how he was potentially a government asset. And his objective was to help facilitate the collection of information and pass that information on to the government. And it was done primarily through sex. How likely is that?
I don't think, I think what you just said is all likely, with the exception of what we're all focused on, that we think the end goal was to compromise people through sex.
Okay.
I am increasingly of the assessment that what happened is the sex that he was engaged in was his criminal act. And that sex, or the opportunity for sex, is what kept him compromised to his clients, who were criminals in other ways, criminals of tax evasion, criminals of organized crime, criminals of political corruption. So when you swim with snakes, all the snakes have different skin. Inside the United States, we don't like sex trafficking. We don't like it. We don't like the abuses of children. But we don't really prioritize those in our list of federal crimes. We do prioritize political corruption. It's one of the highest things that you can convict for. If you can find a politician and convict them for political corruption. CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people. Your career as an FBI agent is made.
Okay.
They're morally outrageous to us.
Yes.
But there's a reason that you don't see many people going to federal court for major offenses against children.
Yeah.
And what adds to that is the fact that we still don't know anything about what really happened to Epstein.
Exactly.
That type of obscurity usually indicates that he is protected. His case file is protected. And one of the few ways that you can protect a case file, to the place where even the president can't disclose it, is if he is a classified, documented, protected, covert informant, CI.
Yes.
CIs have to be protected, because for every one CI that you have right now, there's thousands that are also out there. Plus, if you violate a covert informant today, it's going to prevent people from saying yes to it tomorrow. So in the best interest of all the future reporters that you're going to have, you have to stay hush on the current one.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. So you don't think he took his life?
I don't know that we have enough evidence, and I also don't know that we ever will. It's reasonable that he killed himself. It's also reasonable that he could have been killed. It's also reasonable that he could have been somehow something else. Who even knows? A body double or a fake death? I don't even know, because we don't get an autopsy report.
This is true. This is true. Yeah, yeah. So that is a thing. Body doubles, fake deaths. This is something that happens.
Absolutely. That's how you evacuate high-value assets from their country without them knowing they've been evacuated. The whole witness protection program that you've seen in movies exists in the United States, but it's 10x whenever we evacuate a senior Russian general of their submarine force, because that person is going to give us decades worth of intelligence on the submarine missions, activities, capabilities of Russian subs. So when we evacuate or exfiltrate that person from Russia, we change their identity, we change their name, we can put a dead body in its place, we can create an accident that makes it look like they died.
Wow.
To throw their own government off the case, to at least prevent their government from accusing us of espionage.
I see.
Because every time you have a spy case, you have a global diplomatic incident.
Yes.
So everybody tries to cover their tracks, right? Whether it's the Russians poisoning people in the UK, or whether it's, the Romanians faking a death of a Russian asset on their soil to give that asset to the Israelis.
I see it. Well, complicated.
Complicated, but so fun. It's so interesting, because everything you're doing in plain sight, and nobody knows what's happening.
Yes. And I think these are the skills that I definitely want to get into with you, because it feels like you've developed almost a beyond a PhD level of gathering human intelligence. You're growing up in rural Pennsylvania, only brown child, in your school or in your area?
In my family.
In your family?
So my mom was Latino, but my stepdad, who was raising me, was Caucasian, and my two half-sisters came out very Caucasian. So I'm in a house where I'm the brownest. My mom is she's of that generation where she's trying to kind of erase her heritage and assimilate to American life, because that's what we did in the 80s. That was 1985 in a nutshell
Yes.
for all non-Caucasians. They were trying to pretend that they were Caucasian to be accepted, right? And then we're in a rural Pennsylvania schoolhouse. Like, we had one other black kid, a black male, and we had me. And that was the color of our school. But we only had, 500 graduating students. So it was very small.
But still 500. So 2 out of 500 are 2 students of color.
Yep.
Right. How do you think that experience impacts who you then later become in life as an adult?
Dude, I tried to explain this to my wife, who grew up as a Latina in Florida, where everybody was Latin, right? Everybody's Cuban, everybody's Venezuelan.
Yeah.
I know it's not really, I'm overstating it, but I thought I was white. That's how it manifested. I was surprised to look in the mirror and not see a white kid. I was surprised to be growing a beard and a mustache at 13 when everybody else wasn't. And I didn't understand why I couldn't get a date to the prom, or I couldn't ask a girl out to homecoming dance, because I looked so different. But I felt like I must look like everybody else, right? And it was the strangest thing. And it's a surreal feeling. It's an absolutely surreal feeling to be surprised by who you are when you look at yourself in the mirror.
Yes.
And it flipped the script when I went to CIA, because I started to realize that brown people around the world are ignored. Just like I was even ignoring my own ethnicity, trying to belong to this community that I was growing up in. And if there was racism in my community, I was blind to it because I just thought I was white. I don't even know how to describe it better than that.
Look at that. So I would imagine that what complicates your identity is also the fact that you didn't grow up with your biological father.
Absolutely.
So that story to me is just, it's surreal. If you can describe, if you're open to describing what happened to your father.
So I didn't know the story of my father until I was almost 10 years old. And I don't know why my mom chose to wait that long, or why anybody in my family chose to wait that long. But what I found out later is that my father was killed in a violent crime in California at the same time that he and my mom were going through a divorce.
Okay.
And he was murdered in a bar after insulting a drug dealer, because my father had tried to get a job, couldn't get a job, re-enlisted in the military, which was the job that he hated. And they were at a bar celebrating his re-enlistment, and everybody was getting drunk. And a story goes that a drug dealer came in and was like, "Hey, it looks like you guys are trying to have a good party." And instead of just saying no, my father, whose genes run in me, so I can kind of connect and relate to this, decided that it was the time to lambaste the drug dealer, make fun of him publicly, and ridicule him. Drug dealer went outside, grabbed a knife, came back inside, and stabbed my dad 12 times in the back at the bar. He was immediately arrested. He was sent to prison. Justice was served, but my father died that day. I was just barely born. I was a few months old, living with my mom in a different state. My mom and dad didn't even know where each other were. My mom was filing for divorce by posting an ad in the newspaper at the time. So because she was listed as next of kin and he was enlisted in the Air Force, when his death was announced, the Air Force gave his death payments and whatever else to my mom. And that is what bridged the gap for my mom to raise me as a single mom of, she was 20 years old when she had me.
She was 20. Goodness. So then you find this out at the age of 10. What is the grieving process for a situation like that, where you haven't met him, but he is your father?
It doesn't exist.
It does.
Oh my gosh, I love your questions already. So you can't conceptualize this at 10 years old. At 10 years old, I was like, oh, this guy I never met, with stories I've never heard of, was murdered. 10 years old, you don't know what that means. You don't get that.
Right.
Right?
Right.
He was killed, and then that's how my mom raised me for a few years until she married my dad. And my dad is the only male role model, right, in my family, my stepdad. And he is the one that's feeding me, and he's the one that's raising me and clothing me, and he's the one giving me all the dadly lessons. And he's a Caucasian guy from Indiana, a Vietnam vet, and he's all I've ever known. So it's like trying to grasp something that you've never known. It wasn't until I was in Colorado at the Air Force Academy at the age of 19 where I took the initiative to find my father's grave.
Okay.
And I found out that his gravesite was in Denver, and I was in Colorado Springs. So I go to Denver on a weekend as a college sophomore, for all intents and purposes, and I find his gravesite, and that's when the emotions came. And it was just this, it's only happened to me twice in my life, where you are like vomiting emotion. You can't hold it in, you can't control it, you feel so ugly because it's just coming out. And you don't even know what's coming out. You're swearing and you're cussing and you're crying and it's nonsensical. I am not usually that emotional of a person, and it was so frightening to not have any control over myself for who knows how long it lasted.